All right, we are back with Central Valley Talk, broadcasting live at CentralValleyTalk.com. Also on YouTube and Facebook. We thank you for joining us. It's now the 1 o'clock hour. Happy Thursday, February the 4th already. Hey, my next guest, please give it up for Ed Crane. And I'm going to do the clapping. You know, COVID is happening, so we don't have a live studio audience. But we do have a beautiful pup. And I know you can't see him right now. But actually, Mike, our technical director, is going to get a shot. Look, there he... Okay. Now, Ed, what is his name?
His name is Zern.
Zern.
Zern is a service dog, professionally trained. We've been a team together for over 2 years now. He's my third dog in the past 20 years.
Wow.
And he is trained to fulfill a full spectrum of commands for me, but he has a specific training to help me with my epilepsy.
And that's what we're talking about today. Now, coming up this Monday, which will be, what, the 7th or 8th?
The 8th, February 8th.
Okay. It is International Epilepsy Day.
Correct.
So we're going to be talking about that. And you're also going to be discussing some how epilepsy impacts individuals, right?
Correct.
But also... There's other things that go along with epilepsy that people don't realize.
Yeah, definitely. Let me start off by saying that it's a great opportunity, and we truly appreciate being invited to come out and speak, not only for me, but for my service dog, Zern, who's from Canine Partners for Life, to be able to come out on a topic like International Epilepsy Day and explain what epilepsy means to individuals like myself, family members in the community, is important for not only me but the organizations involved. What I learned a long time ago was that an average person, and before, I'm 63 years old and epilepsy hit me at age 30, but prior to that, I didn't really understand what epilepsy or multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy was unless it affected somebody I knew or a family member. So,
well, was that hard, though? I mean, because you went for 30 years with no seizures, and then boom. And
then what happened to me was I was professionally working as an engineer in 1987. I had been working for the company for 10 years at that point. Life was normal. And very quickly, I went to a corporate meeting. There were about 60 people. I worked at a World Trade Center in New York, but I drove down to Philadelphia to participate in a meeting for the company. And halfway through, I was making a presentation. So everything was going smoothly. And then, of course, they called me up to talk about my subject for the meeting. And I was about 5 minutes into it, and I turned around to write something on the board in my presentation.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I experienced my first grand mal seizure without warning. And in addition to losing consciousness and falling, I was close enough to a desk that on the way down, my head hit it. Oh. So that by the time I hit the floor, in addition to convulsing and people panicking, there was blood everywhere. Oh. So, but luckily, corporately, they were trained to respond in situations that were emergencies, and I got to emergency care. I happened to be in Philadelphia and went to Jefferson Memorial on the spot there and got care. But that moment is a moment that I can remember prior to the seizure only because that moment changed my life forever.
Now, I have actually had seizures before, but it was mainly because of like a medication issue where I was on something that can give you seizures, and then they did the whole test on me, and I don't have epilepsy. But I think because some people get worried, they're like, oh, if you have a seizure, you're epileptic. That's not true.
No, it isn't true. I mean, there are many things that can cause seizures, but what can complicate matters is that including people who do have epilepsy, more than 50% of the cases, they're never able to diagnose what the cause was. And I'm part of that category. I'm somebody who had that first grand mal, and after testing and getting back on my feet and luckily returning to work, there was no diagnosis. All there was at that point was treatment. They put me on anti-seizure medications.
Sure.
So in a nutshell, I went back to work, and I was able to function with my epilepsy for about the next 14 years. And what happened as one seizure in 1987, over that period of time, became 2 or 3 seizures the next year, and then seizures once a month, and then seizures weekly. And then what happened to me was in 2001, I was having them so often, I had a seizure at work, and there was panic, and I wound up being hospitalized. And that moment, I had been dealing with a neurologist for a period of time, and he said, hey, you are at a frequency range now where you shouldn't be working anymore. I mean, the injuries alone, that potential is dangerous. And at that point, he referred me to a neurosurgeon to go through a series of testing to see if surgery was an option. And I went out on disability in 2001, and about a year and a half later, I went in for left temporal lobe surgery to deal with, it was not going to resolute my condition, but to deal with it. The goal was, they had determined that I experienced seizures from both sides of the brain. That's complicated. But they found that my left temporal lobe, and that's right here, side of my ear, was more or less responsible for my grand mal seizures. And they said, hey, we want you to understand that we believe you should go in for that. The bottom line is that that area of the brain is such that you're going to lose your short-term memory. It's going to be gone. And, you know, before I take the next step on that, what I wanted to do was just give a little general information and then go into some details, okay? Part of my epilepsy is a memory issue. So in preparation for this today, I sat down and wrote information down. And I am not, with my short-term memory, able to memorize like I used to. And I've come on this show many times before, and frequency of doing something allows me to remember much better. So the subject matter I'm talking about today, I have to refer to really get the information complete. So I wanted to share a couple of things. A little bit of general information is that the definition of epilepsy, which is very simple, is it's a disorder of the brain in which a person has recurring seizures. And I say that because if you go online, if you're an individual who has epilepsy or a parent or family member, and you're looking to understand something, there are thousands of definitions. And definitions can go from a paragraph to a full article. They can tell you about types of seizures. They can tell you about everything from, you know, technical support will tell you that there is basically 2 or 3 main types of seizures, and there's articles that'll tell you there's 50 or 60 types of seizures. So what I'm saying is that when you are looking for information, it's troubling because very rarely is everybody saying the same thing, okay? Yeah. What I learned a long time ago, and something that I think can help the epilepsy community out there, is there's one webpage that I recommend to anybody who's trying to get a better understanding. And that is, if you go online and put down CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control, CDC Epilepsy. Or if you write there, Epilepsy CDC.
Like into Google?
into Google or anywhere on the internet, and they'll come up with a web page that is the most detailed. It's laid out great, and it looks into all aspects of epilepsy. I mean, it even goes down as far as if you're the patient, if you're the parents, if you're a doctor. It has almost anything that somebody may be able to try and find. It will steer you in the right direction. So that's one thing I want to recommend people today.
We've got that pulled up right now, too, on our, as you're watching us, our viewers, you can see it on the right-hand side of the screen. So CDC Epilepsy, that's the best bet.
That is a good site. Now, of course, everybody knows there are tremendous organizations, Epilepsy Foundation and many others like it. There are groups I belong to, but sometimes that source alone can answer questions.
Good.
You know, it's not a source where you're going to be able to go on and refer to people, but it's a source of information. So.
Okay, so what else? You have a couple.
Yeah, I was going to say another general piece of information is that there's approximately 65 million people around the world that deal with epilepsy. In the United States alone, there's just over 3 million. So I bring that up because I want people who are involved with epilepsy to know they're not alone.
Yes.
They're not alone.
Yes.
And again, I don't know if I said it before, but I'm 63 years old, and epilepsy hit me at age 30, so I've been dealing with epilepsy for 33 years.
It's kind of like the first half of your life you didn't have it, and then now the second half you have had it.
Correct. The challenge has been there. And most people, when asked about epilepsy, the only thing they know is seizure. And most people, and even family and friends, truly don't know what seizure is. So it just told me that there is not a lot of information, and even if you're looking for information, it's not easy to find. So I wanted to just bring up a couple of subjects, 7 topics that I'll just briefly talk about, and they are memory loss, something that I experience and is the most difficult aspect of my epilepsy, memory loss, balance issues, chronic head pain, anxiety issues. I fight a battle with depression. I have fought that battle since day one of my epilepsy.
Yeah, because your whole life has changed.
Right.
Like that.
Medication issues and family issues. I thought those were, if I could do a little bit of conversation about those subjects, I think it would help the community and help me spread the word a little bit. Memory issues are the most difficult for me, and there is a lot of people with epilepsy that have that. I have memory issues because of the seizures, because of my medications affect my memory, and because of my brain surgery. I lost the use of my short-term memory because where they operated on me, it affected it directly.
So there's a certain portion.
Left temporal lobe for me was an area that the electrical waves going back and forth access. And for an average person like yourself, if I said, where did you go yesterday? You'd be able to say, hey, you know, I went to the store, I visited so-and-so. I wanted people today to understand I have no short-term memory. What that means is 2 or 3 hours from now, I won't remember being here, okay? Wow. I can't tell you what happened to me yesterday, the day before, or the day before that, going back to my brain surgery, okay? And the only time that varies is if I make a thought emotional, okay? Give you an example. Remembering I've been introduced to 3 amazing dogs that helped me over the time. Just remembering my current partner's name, Zern, took me 4 months along the way because I had to make it emotional. And what I did was I printed a photo that Canine partner sent me almost a year before we were going to partner. and I printed it with his name on it, and I posted it all over my house, okay?
All right.
So that is how difficult. It can become easier if there is an emotion, if somebody passed away that was close to me, or if I was involved in something like an automobile accident. Those thoughts and ideas can come back a little bit easier, okay? I can't remember what happened, as I said a few minutes ago. When I see somebody and I meet somebody, unless I've known them for a long time, I tell them that I have epilepsy, and due to that, I could run into you tomorrow, and I won't remember you, so I want you to understand that
you're
if
not being rude. You're not
I'm not trying to ignore them.
Yeah.
And most people I've ever met that understood that have reintroduced themselves to me. And again, I'm trying to tell you simple facts that make this very, very difficult to deal with. You know, not being able to remember is something that makes life a real challenge to me. And it is something that there aren't easy solutions to. For me, I had to accept it and then find a way of making sure that everything that was important to me got written down. So, for example, I keep files with notes in them that I can easily refer back to. I come to presentations. Now, there are presentations I've made many times that I could refer to, but if I come up with new topics, I've got to be prepared. And the last thing I'll say about memory is I want patients with epilepsy and their families to know you can't be embarrassed by this. And it's not easy, but you've got to be able to learn to function with it and then move on and continue living. So
we've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
What else do we want to touch on?
Well, you know, I had spoken to you about the fact that each of us has many challenges. I fight balance issues. I'm lucky because I've got a harness on my service dog.
Sure.
But without that, when I was fighting without these partners, I slipped and fell on a regular basis. I've suffered many broken bones along the way, and that's something that people have to understand about epilepsy along the way.
Getting a service dog, though, helps, right?
It helped me. Or I'll tell people to get used to wearing or having a cane and having it strapped to the hand and getting used to it along the way. I also deal with chronic pain up in the area of my forehead, okay?
Makes sense.
And it's devastating. For a long time, I had to go into darkness and get away from everybody for hours. Luckily for me, my neurologist referred me to a medication specialist.
Okay.
And I went through a series of testing to come up with a medication that was helpful to me. As a matter of fact, I carry a pain medication in my pocket all the time. And it's one of those things, you know, I've got my pocket so full. It's one of those things that I'm used to, at the onset of pain, taking it. I don't wait, and then I try to relax.
This is for like severe migraine headache?
These are severe chronic head pain. They're also classified as suicidal pain. That's how severe it is. Most people who have this, like I said, have to at least take the steps of getting into darkness, getting away from sound, being able to shut off. And it is so bad. You know, I dealt with it for many years without the medication along the way.
But so, in a nutshell, there is help out there.
There's help out there. There are resources out there I spoke to you about. I just want to give a word that I'm grateful to my family and my friends who have helped me. I'm not embarrassed about asking for help or their support. I'm grateful to my service dogs, including my current dog, Zern, who have changed my life, and Canine Partners for Life. And there are resources. I belong to 3 epilepsy support groups around the country, and we're online now. They're in different parts, New York and California. And all of this can be helpful with understanding and dealing with epilepsy.
If somebody has a question for you, whether it's maybe a new patient that was just diagnosed with epilepsy or a family that needs some support, how do they get in touch with you?
I just want to make sure I'm not a professional,
right?
Okay,
right,
but I have the ability to refer many times to a resource, and my email address is my name, Edward F. Crane at Edward F. Crane 57 at AOL.com.
Edward F. Crane
57 at AOL.com.
AOL.com.
And there are many groups online, to reach out to. Don't be afraid or embarrassed about asking for help. I lost that a long time ago, and it's helped me.
Yeah.
That's the one recommendation for celebrating International Epilepsy Day,
which is Monday, the 8th of February. So, this is a great topic. Thank you for helping the community out and getting the word out. Again, 3 million people here just in the U.S. suffer from epilepsy, so you're not alone. And Zern, thank you. I think he's taking a nice little rest right now.
he will rest, but he stays focused. And again, I'm able to be here today,
right?
because of him. And I just want to say that thank you here for inviting me.
Absolutely,
and
pleasure.
Anybody out there having any type of connection to epilepsy, reach out and get help.
All right. Edward, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Zern, thank you again. And thank you for watching Central Valley Talk. We're going to be back with more interviews on this Thursday in just a couple of minutes.